Your Majesty at your service. Welcome to Fair Queen Talks. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my podcast, What Do You Want? What do you want? A simple yet loaded question asked by people who in word appear to desire to understand the request of those proclaiming Black Lives Matter. However, to me, those who are asking, what do you want? Having one question ignored the whole context that led them to ask the question in the first place. In today's episode, I'll be unpacking the root of the question, what do you want? I'll be offering a simple answer to the simple question and load you with information that will make you realize that the intent behind the question and the answer to the question is problematic, divisive, and not so simple after all. When I don't know something and I want to learn, my first point of reference is Google. In a digital age where Google holds a lot of information, this is the place where 21st century humans should start their journey of finding answers. Like with anything, you need to check out the sources of information and think about the agenda behind that information. So don't be naive and believe everything you read. Make sure you do your research. On May 25th, 2020, George Floyd, a 46-year-old black man, was murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA, during an arrest for allegedly using a counterfeit bill. An African American male being killed by law enforcement unfortunately isn't shocking news, and due to the frequency of such reports, a lot of people have been desensitized. What makes the murder of George Floyd so shocking, in my opinion, are several elements. 1. The murder was filmed in almost its entirety. Usually police officers in such situations can argue their way out and not be charged for their crimes. In this occasion, the police officer would have to contest the video evidence that has been imprinted in the minds of many. 2. Many who traditionally would be at the defense of police officers who murder black people couldn't on this occasion defend the officer. 3. Many who traditionally would not recognize racism within law enforcement have to some extent been exposed to the disregard some police officers have for black lives. And 4, which I think is the most critical one, is that during the global pandemic caused by COVID-19, many countries around the world are in lockdown and under quarantine. Many populations have agreed to enter the social contract of staying home as much as we can in order to reduce the deaths caused by COVID-19. In a combined effort to abide by new social rules, people have placed their faith on their politicians, healthcare, and law enforcement to keep the nation safe and keep the nation alive. When law enforcement, on this occasion, decides to end a life unnecessarily, law enforcement breaks the social contract that kept the peace, law, and order. This is why you get an outrage from people whose trust has been broken and led millions of people around the world protesting and questioning the establishment that upholds their societies. Since the murder of George Floyd, there has been Black Lives Matter protests globally, Blackout Tuesday on social media, statues of prominent people involved in the slave trade being removed or vandalized, far-right groups protesting, papers being written to discredit the claims of racism within law enforcement. You could say that there is a sense of racial divide, and are people asking the question, what is it that you want? When people ask that question, what's being said and truly asked are two different things. When I hear the question, what do you want? I receive it in this way. I receive it with sub-questions within the question. What I hear is, the following. What is it that Black people want now? What race card are you pulling? Aren't there bigger things to worry about? Why are you protesting during the pandemic when you are most likely to die? Black people have equal rights in society now, so what more is it that you're asking for? Racism is in the past. What more does society need to do for Black people? George Floyd is not a martyr. He wasn't a good guy. Why are you celebrating a bad man? The truth is, no one knew who George Floyd was globally before his death. All we know is that he was another Black man murdered by a white police officer. And what do we want? The answer is justice. And when do we want it? We want it now. What the world and the supporters of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter want is that the police officers involved with the murder of George Floyd don't get away with their bad behavior. We don't want bad police officers. We want the social contract between the establishment and civilians to be fair. We want bad people to pay for what they do. Unfortunately, a lot of white police officers who murdered Black lives have gotten away with it. Enough is enough. People don't want this in this decade. Black people have abided by imposed social contracts for centuries and have been murdered, raped, abused, and treated in a way as if their lives didn't matter. What people are saying today, and have been saying since the day resistance against colonial power started, is that we are all humans and the color of our skin should not determine our life experiences. I'd now like to share with you what the Black Lives Matter group is about. This is what they are about in their own words. Hashtag Black Lives Matter was founded in 2013 in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murderer. Black Lives Matter Foundation is a global organization in the US, UK, and Canada whose mission is to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on Black communities by the state and vigilantes. By combating and countering acts of violence, creating space for Black imagination and innovation, and centering Black joy, we are winning immediate improvements in our lives. We are expansive. We are a collective of liberators who believe in an inclusive and spacious movement. We also believe that in order to win and bring as many people with us along the way, we must move beyond the narrow nationalism that is all too prevalent in Black communities. We must ensure that we are building a movement that brings all of us to the front. We affirm the lives of Black queer and trans folks, disabled folks, undocumented folks, folks with records, women, and all Black lives along the gender spectrum. Our network centers those who have been marginalized within the Black liberation movement. We are working for a world where Black lives are no longer systematically targeted for demise. We affirm our humanity and contributions to the society and our resilience in the face of deadly oppression. The call for Black Lives Matter is a rallying cry for all Black lives striving for liberation. So for those who ask, what do you want? Of those who support Black Lives Matter, I would like to encourage you to visit their website and learn more. And if you want to know what I, Fairy Queen, specially want, firstly, I want to exist without being penalized for being a Black woman. Secondly, I want to be able to trust the establishment that I pay through my taxes to protect me and keep me safe. And lastly, I want to live in a world that learns from its history and evolves to a place where justice is served and where color is irrelevant to who gets that justice. At the end of each episode, I address the Queendom. What do you want? Question your question, and then let's talk. Always remember the context of your questions. Google is a great source for information, but make sure you check out your sources and think about the agenda behind it. If all lives matter, then Black Lives Matter, and justice for innocent people who have been murdered by law enforcement deserve justice. Thank you so much for listening to Fairy Queen Talks. See you next time.